late. I normally try to do it earlier than this, but tried to get some rest yesterday, so this has me out here a bit later. And y'all know I try my best to do my yoga at the beach. So this is where I am. I hope y'all can see it. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this topic. I've been wanting to talk about this for a few weeks, and my original plan was to make a podcast, but that just has not become a reality. So we're just going to do this video, and we may refashion this video into the podcast. But I wanted to discuss the reality that nothing is universal. And this is a hard one to accept. This is a hard one for people to accept. Okay, hold on. Didn't know I was on a call. Am I on a call? Okay. My car is saying I'm calling somebody at this time. Actually, me. So I'm trying to hang that up. Not sure why it's saying that. Okay, well, we're gonna move on because it's not letting me hang it up. And I mean, it's just me calling me, so you know, not terrible. But I wanted to talk about the fact that nothing is universal. And what I mean by that is that we have been misinformed by Western philosophy to believe that there are certain types of thoughts or certain types of beliefs that are universal, certain types of beliefs that hold true among all human beings throughout the earth. And that is not true. That is not true, right? So I was here talking about, I think, archetypes at one time, or I was talking about some things, and then, no, I was talking about the feminine. And I was asking, where do we get this definition of the feminine? Where does it come from? Femininity, where does that come from? And does it apply to all women? Does it apply to Black women in particular? And someone was asking me about archetypes. Aren't there specific archetypes that hold true throughout the earth? And the answer is no, there are not. That idea of archetypes actually comes from Carl Jung, the famous philosopher, and it's something that he created. So let me see if I can make what I'm saying clear. So what we believe is that the thought of what femininity is universal. That femininity is nurturing, femininity is naturally submissive, femininity is loving, femininity is caring. We have all of these ideas about what femininity is. And we believe that those ideas are universal, meaning that they cover the entire globe, that this is how humans think about femininity. And not just that, sometimes we'll attribute it to animals too. We'll say, because you can see this in the animal kingdom, right? You can see this lioness being submissive or something like that. We'll try to find examples of it in the animal kingdom. When the truth of the matter is, what we consider to be feminine is not universal. There is a Western thought about femininity, and then every other group of people has their own thoughts about what femininity is, if they even break human beings down into those groups, because everybody doesn't break human beings down into those groups. So it is dangerous for us to say femininity is nurturing, where this type of femininity, or this, the way that this group of people describes femininity, means that it is nurturing. You can say that, but you cannot say overall femininity is nurturing, right? You don't know. You don't know what it is among the group of people that you haven't studied. So you can say, by this definition coming from this group of people, this is how that is viewed, but that's it. That's all you can say. You can't speak for everyone else. Well, let me give another example. Nothing is universal. God concepts are not universal. In every system, God is not male. In every system, God is not vengeful and jealous and controlling. That's not in every system. That is in the Abrahamic traditions, and that is where that particular way of looking at God comes from. But that doesn't hold true across every system. Now, we find one or two other systems where that holds true, and I'm not saying that is not valid. But what I'm saying is finding one or two other systems where something is true still doesn't make it universal, right? I was doing a lecture one time at Meharry Medical College back at home in Nashville, and one of my fellow Fiskites had invited me to come and speak at Meharry for a religious thing that they were having, like showcasing different types of religion. And so I came to talk about African traditional religion, and I shared like what I knew about the religion. And she said, well, she was asking me if some principles hold true across religion. And I said, I don't know. What principles do you mean? So she asked me if in African traditional religion there was a principle of redemption. And I said, no, there isn't. Redemption from what? Why would redemption be required? No, there isn't. There's no redemption and there is no savior that is not needed. What are you being saved from? The concept of needing to be saved from something does not exist in these traditions. So there's no concept of redemption being required or a redeemer or a savior being required. Those things are not, those concepts do not exist. So even when we fall into believing certain things exist across all, no, they don't. Nothing exists across every spectrum. Nothing is universal. Every group of people's way of viewing life is unique and it is germane to them. And when I say that, what I mean is it is what works for them. So our West and Central African ancestors that were enslaved came to these places, all of these different places in the West, and they used a West and Central African foundation plus the experience that we were having here in the West to create a philosophy that is best for us. So that philosophy is hoodoo, that philosophy is conjure, that philosophy is root working, that philosophy is New African Vodou, right? It is what we use in this place to experience and to deal with life and to continue to get what we need from the universe to fulfill our destinies. It's different. It is different from European people who live here. It is different from European immigrants that came here or other types of immigrants that came here. Our way of viewing life and dealing with things and our beliefs and understanding about things is different. So I think that it's a drawback to your studies. It keeps your studies from being as deep as they can. It keeps your research from going as deep as it can if you are held up in this thought that everything is universal. There are some ways of thinking that are universal. No, there's no way of thinking that's universal. There's no philosophy that's universal. There are no archetypes do not exist. Take archetypes out of your mind. You're going to find similarities. But I always say the similarities are based upon the similarities in the ecology. Because what our ancestors were responding to was ecological stimuli, right? This plant grows here, this animal lives here, this natural phenomenon occurs here. So when you have our ancestors who live close to the sea, then their entire philosophy is built around water. For our Anago or Yoruba ancestors, they lived surrounded by many, many deep, beautiful forests. And so the entire philosophy is built around the grove, the forest, the sacredness of the forest, right? And so what happens is, as human beings became and continue to become, then we experienced certain types of interactions with our environment. And that is what created our philosophies. And that is what created our world views. And so there are ways in which those worldviews can overlap in those parts of the experience that we were having that were the same. But for the most part, those worldviews are not going to overlap. That's not what's going to happen. You're having a totally different experience. I'm having a totally different experience here at the Atlantic Ocean in Florida than somebody is having in Gambia right now at this same Atlantic Ocean. I'm having a totally different experience. So while we're both at this ocean, we're both enjoying the sand and the sun, we're having two different experiences of this natural phenomenon, which is the same phenomenon, right? So come out of the thought that anything is universal. Come out of the thought that there is a universal definition for anything. And what that will do is it will free you. It liberates your mind. It frees your mind. It gives you the opportunity to think about things on a different level. And it also gives you the opportunity to see things from a different perspective. One of the largest difficulties when you're trying to study African traditional religion is that when Western philosophers came in and gathered information about the tradition, they defined everything according to Christianity. They defined everything according to a Western lens and also an Abrahamic lens. And so much of the nuance of the tradition was lost in those definitions. So you find yourself scrambling to figure out what the real, thank you find yourself trying to figure out what the real deal was. What were my ancestors really thinking? It allows you to weed out those thoughts that come from a particular lens when you say nothing is universal. Nothing is universal. Let go of that thought. There is no universal way to be a woman. There is no universal way to be a man. There is no universal way to be feminine. There is no universal way to be masculine. Each way of doing these things comes out of a different culture. That's where those things come from, is the culture that the person comes from. And so that's why each way of doing it is different and unique and beautiful and powerful and useful. So as you are studying yourself, as you are studying our traditions, let go of the thought that anything is universal. Stop going in there looking for, well, who's the one that's similar to Jesus? There's nobody that's similar to Jesus. Jesus was not required. Who's the thing in here that's similar to the Virgin Mary? There's nobody in there that's similar to the Virgin Mary. Virginity was not required, nor was that type of, the entirety of that experience was not required. The reason that those things were required in that tradition was because there was a specific philosophy that was being espoused, a specific philosophy that was being taught and being told. So then those other elements were required. If that's not the case, then those elements are not required. So there's no Jesus type thing. There's no Jehovah, no Yahweh type thing. No abusive sky daddy waiting to smite you. Just pausing and waiting to beat you down anytime you make a mistake. That does not exist. That is not there. All right? So just wanted to share that little bit of information. I've been wanting to get that out for a while. Nothing is universal. Thank you guys so much for listening, for watching. I'm going to post it up on the page. I can see some of your comments. The rest of them I cannot see. I'm sorry. It's the light. It's the angle and the light mixed with the fact that I don't have my reading glasses on, right? So I can't see everybody's comments. But peace, love, ecstasy, abundance, and bliss to all of those within the sound of my voice who are wishing the same for me and mine. And as always, we wish the lessons of life on those who are ignorant enough to wish us otherwise. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next.